Hello, everybody. It's Sunday again, and welcome back to Hometown Cable. The program's called What's Going On Here? Bob Venn with the mic, Calvin Castine with the camera, and we're going to take you on a little tour today of, we're in Essex County, just barely in Essex County, in AuSable Forks, New York. And we're going to go back into the late 19th century to look at this beautiful home in AuSable Forks. It's known as the Graves Mansion. We're going to tell you all about this building of 31 rooms. We're going to tour the building with the person who's in charge of the manager. There's tours at this building now, and we'll get into that a little bit later. We'll show you some of the architecture here. There's outside work has to be done. Some of the wood here is spoiled between the first and the second floor. An awful lot of things to be done, but we'll find all about that on the inside. Thank you for watching Hometown Cable every day. The program's on 5 times. Calvin and Sam Castine bringing you all kinds of events in the North Country, and your comments are always welcome. Your donations as a patron, of course, are encouraged to keep this kind of a program going. At 9:30 this morning, we're down in AuSable Forks, New York, and Calvin was out last night until, I think, nearly 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock anyway, doing ball games. We'll be right back. We're still outside. You'll notice that leading off the main sidewalk coming into the house is a marble sidewalk going out in this direction. This home was erected in the middle 1870s. I think it was finished about 1877, 1878. There's a circle driveway on the other side of the house. There's more porches on that side. And we're right downtown AuSable Forks, and as Calvin would say, in beautiful downtown AuSable Forks, which, as you probably know, is in 2 counties, both Clinton and Essex. It changes at the river, right in the middle of the community. The school is right across the road from the mansion, and he's showing you some of the intricate. Now, inside of every one of the windows, there are shutters on the inside, and I believe they're all oak. We'll show you those on the inside. They fold back into pockets on the inside of each window. Of course, you'll notice the corner up here, the cornice of the wood, it's going. It takes an awful lot to keep a home like this, as you people know. But the main house itself hasn't moved a bit. It's been here for 115 years. And it's had, I think we'll find, 4 owners. We're here this morning very quickly. Last night I attended a meeting of the Clinton County Historical Society or Association in Plattsburgh. We've talked with Helen Allen. Well, the speaker last night was Tom Campbell, and he had some slides and he had some video. And I was there. I did that. We were going to show that on TV. Then I said, we got to get down sometime. And he said, well, we're open for 4 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then he's going west for the winter. So he wasn't open today, so he said he would see us today, and made arrangement with Calvin, and here we are. That's how we're here so quickly. And we hope you're going to enjoy this tour. And we want to tell you right now, please don't leave, because there'll be something new every minute in this video, as far as I understand. And it may not do justice to what we're going to see, because it's very close inside, and it's very... the woodwork is very dark, beautiful, walnut. And he'll explain all that to us when we get inside. This is the, I guess you'd say, the main entrance from the front. And you start right off. He told me, he was telling us last night, that these doors are all walnut, and they've been covered with paint. And he hopes to be able to strip those before too long, without losing the integrity of the wood, because stripping sometimes can damage the wood. So they're talking with somebody right now. Notice the intricate right at the edge of the door, the top and the bottom, that they spent all kinds of money here. Again, before we go in, we want to show you the door handle and the work. These are, I think he said, in most cases were they thought they were brass. They turned out to be they thought they were copper, but they're brass?
Thought they were brass, but they're copper.
Okay, we talked to him inside, and you'll notice there's a bird motif on the middle of that. Well, that's been followed throughout the house by the man who did the building. And then you'll notice also the hinges you can see here. All made special. As he indicated last night, you won't find any more of these in the world anywhere because they were made special for this house. Then the very ornate floor here that's, I don't know the materials, but you can see that it goes into the big doors in the front, and the same type of door, but there's your walnut. You see there's two kinds of walnut. And that's what that would look like if they hadn't painted them out here. The thickness is a full 2.5, I think, doors. You think he said at one time they weighed over 130 pounds each.
Are in front of the... No.
Okay, we've come inside. This is the gentleman that we heard last night when we were at the Clinton County Historical Association, Thomas Campbell.
You bet.
Right, and Tom we called you. Is that all right?
That's fine.
All right. We enjoyed that very much last night, Tom. 50 people enjoyed it.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was really a privilege to be featured at the Historical Society presentation there for the December program.
Well, you really were supposed to come in November, you remember?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was kind of a shock for a Southern Californian to experience 1.5 feet of snow and get a call from Helen, and she said, hey, I don't know, Tom. I know you're from California, so that's kind of risky for you to come down today. But she was grand enough to have us rescheduled for last night.
I had planned on going down November 1st, the very first day of November. Remember, we had that big snowstorm on Halloween evening, and it was postponed for a month, and we were there last night. And we probably won't be showing you what I took last night because we got a private tour this morning, and we're going to see an awful lot more. I saw videos and slides last night. Mm-hmm. Well, Tom, as we start out, how long have you been in the building? What is your title? What do you...
Well, actually, I'm the current curator here at the Graves Estate. I work for a gentleman, Mr. Rod Fye, out of San Diego, California. He's been in the business of restoring Victorians for over 26 years now, and this is really his baby. This is the home that he discovered 12 years ago, and he thought to himself, well, what a grand Victorian, and it is in such incredible shape. His original plans were to retire here, but after living in Southern California for 5 or 6 years, he got used to the weather, and he sent me back out again just this last June to open it up to the public to find out its highest and best use. And we hope by May of '94 to reopen for tours once again and have it as a multi-use facility open to the public.
Okay, so this would be a tour individually or in groups?
Tours. We also were planning on the possibility of mystery dinner theaters, holding wedding reception here, town hall meetings. We want to hook up with the school systems to have all the kids through. Kind of an educational opportunity for everyone.
Okay, we'll get back about that before we leave as to how you can come here next year. You're only going to be here for the next 4 days.
Yes, San Diego is calling me back. I have to reorganize some of Mr. Fye's other properties, but we will be putting a very good program together back in California for the promotion of the mansion. And our ultimate goal within the next 3 to 5 years is to get it on the National Historical Register. That takes time and that takes money.
Right. When you woke up the morning of November 1st, did you wish you had left October 30th to go back to California?
Well, I kept thinking, now, is that pollen? No, it couldn't be pollen. It just can't be pollen. Got to be snow.
All right. He gives tours here, so we're going to go off in his general, the way that he makes the tour, and I'll be interrupting, of course, as I normally do, and asking questions to have him go on further. So let's follow you, Tom.
Great. Let's step into the grand parlor.
Okay. As we go by, if we can, let's look at the thickness of this wall.
Oh, yeah.
And the kind of wood?
The kind of wood that you're seeing here in all of the doorways is solid oak. It's solid oak framing. The hinges here throughout the entire house are solid copper. And the doors are solid wood and an extraordinary dust. Some of the doors weigh over 350 pounds.
There's that same design we saw out in front when we came in, you'll notice. And as we mentioned out front, that is the same type of door, but it's going to have to be stripped at the front door.
Yes, unfortunately, a lot of the doors and the encasements around the doorways were painted over in time as the mansion had different owners. That's something that all of the renovation process that we're trying to reverse back to turn of the century.
All right, we're in what room then?
Actually, right now we're in what they call, the turn of the century, the grand parlor. This was an area in which Henry Graves and every Sunday would get together with his family, and kind of a relaxation area, unlike the sitting room or reception area that was used to warm people up as they came into the mansion. As you can see around here, Mr. Fye has invested a little over $150,000 in the last 3 years in renovating the interior of the mansion. You can see the beautiful gold wallpapering, the buffing up of the wood. We've put in brand new carpeting, and we've also replaced the 4 missing chandeliers. The one here in the grand parlor, the sitting room, the library, and the music room. Up above the chandelier is the plaster medallion that is above each and every chandelier throughout the mansion, and we're repainting them to their original colors and hues. Also, the white part of the ceiling there, we've discovered there is a gigantic mural of a Madonna underneath that. And we have an expert coming out from Denver who will be looking into that to see if it's feasible for us to pull the paint off to expose the Madonna.
Question.
Yes, sir.
You said replace 4 chandeliers. What happened to the chandeliers?
Well, we have a feeling that some of the former owners may have just kind of walked out with them. We don't have any record of vandalism, but we think that that may have been the case, along with a lot of the stained glass that's missing in different parts of the mansion.
I see.
But actually, these chandeliers are almost exact duplicates of the originals, the only difference being the originals were plumbed for gas.
Okay, were these new, or is this something brand new, or did you find them used someplace?
No, actually those were special ordered through a company in San Francisco. When Mr. Fye was doing a lot of renovation to the Victorians in San Francisco, he knew the best of people to go to get exact duplications. And we did the research here to find out exactly what the chandeliers did look like.
Okay, you mentioned exact duplication on the medallion. How do you know? Do you have colored pictures to show what that was originally?
No, as a matter of fact, most of the information that we get to actually duplicate what turn-of-the-century Graves Mansion looked like is from a lot of the articles that were written in the local newspapers for anywhere between 1878 to 1910, on which they described, reporters would describe particular parts of the mansion. For instance, in the grand parlor, above the chandelier, is a plaster medallion that the leaves are painted
the
parts are painted that. So that's how we've gotten pretty much a general color scheme on that. Also, you might notice here with the largest of all the 9 fireplaces that are in the mansion, this one here is about 12 feet tall. It's made of 3 different types of wood, cherry oak, mahogany, and walnut. And as you can see, there is an arch up towards the top of the fireplace, which is specifically designed to redirect the heat from the fireplace back into the room, since all of the rooms on the first floor have ceilings of 14 feet. So it was kind of a modern fireplace for its day.
When you hear of 9 and 10 feet ceilings in northern New York and Champlain, my daughter's got some 9-foot ceilings and some 10 in the Clark Funeral Home, the former Moore house. 14 feet in this
14 feet on the first floor, 12 on the second floor, and 10 on the third floor. As a matter of fact, just getting an idea of the structure itself, we're on the second of 5 levels. There's over 15,000 square feet of living space here, 31 rooms, 20 bedrooms, and 9 fireplaces. So I guess that's why they call it a mansion.
Have they always had 20 bedrooms? Were they bedrooms all the way that you know of?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there were additional bedrooms that were put down into the basement during the second family who lived here in the 30s, 40s, and 50s when they were converting the mansion into apartments. Okay. Those were additional. But I think the turn of the century, we're looking probably more at about 14 or 15 bedrooms that were specifically original.
Somewhere along this tour, I suppose you're going to tell us about, you mentioned Graves Mansion, who built this and why he built it, and that's later on, is it?
As a matter of fact, that kind of ties in with the beautiful architecture and the wood in the formal dining room. In this room, speaking of wood, when you look at the fireplace and the fireplace tiles, the tiles that are around the center of the fireplace there, and also the tiles just above the mirror here, depict the storytelling that Mr. Graves was really into with his family on a Sunday night. of the King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, Guinevere type of thing. They would all sit around, and instead of watching MTV or 60 Minutes on a Sunday night, they would pick out one of the tiles, and Henry Graves would tell a story. So it was more of a family thing around a warm fireplace. Also, on both sides of the fireplace, you'll notice the hand-painted Italian ceramic tiles. And this is a depiction of the ibex Egyptian bird. Now, this signifies the architect's signature that is repeated throughout the entire mansion in the form of a bird. You'll see the bird motif in some of the crystal, the woodworking. You'll see it in the doorknobs and some of the hinges. So it was the architect's way of saying, I did build this, and there is a theme running through. And the ibex bird actually stands for longevity in life.
Right. Now, when you have the tour, you make a regular, people follow you in a group or whatever.
Oh, yes.
But you also mentioned last night that you have some of the information on the wall, and you can walk through at your own leisure.
Yes, many people opt to take their time, and that's something we really do encourage when they come through the mansion, to spend as much time as possible, because it is an educational opportunity. The information sheets we have on the walls in every single room throughout the mansion talks about the room that you're in, bits and pieces about the history of the mansion, and also answers a lot of questions that we can't fit into on the tour.
Okay.
So that's basically what.
Now, I don't notice a lot of furniture. Have you removed the furniture, or do you intend to have furniture?
There was actually very little furniture here when it was bought 12 years ago, but our plans for '94 is to get quite a number of reputable antique dealers to showcase circa 1878 to turn of the century Victorian furniture here. That's one of the reasons. A few things that we have picked up along the way are strictly Victorian for that era.
Okay. I mentioned outside about the shutters, and you can see them inside. I don't know if you cover that now, or do you cover it along the way?
This is a really good opportunity
to
take a look at the construction of the mansion and the quality that went into building it. Throughout the entire mansion, on all of the windows, you will find they are encased in solid oak. They are framed in solid granite. And at that...
Say that again?
They are framed in solid granite.
In behind there, right behind.
Right here, all the way
right
up and around. Also, Henry Graves was smart enough to know that winters would be quite severe here, so he installed a triple insulation system on all of the windows. You have a storm window, regular window, and these golden oak shutters here that are over 114 years old, and they still, to this day, operate quite smoothly, fold back, and disappear right into the encasement.
Now, that is very nice. Isn't that beautiful? And that gives you an idea. They all do that, right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, throughout the entire mansion, we don't have any windows here that do not have the golden oak shutters. Something which is part of the insulation system. I might also mention at this time that on all of the windows, you might see some of the tiebacks here.
Yes.
They had solid oak curtain rods and beautiful velvet curtains throughout the entire mansion. So just trying to keep the heat in, basically.
Right. Now, this is not plaster around. That's wood.
Some of it is plaster molding, but a large part of it is solid oak. And that will be also one of the restoration processes that we will be going through. As you can see, there is a lot to do here. But getting back to the construction of the mansion, you might notice that through the interior on the first floor are these solid oak archways. These archways aren't only for decoration, but for the structural integrity of the mansion, and also separating the grand parlor, the sitting room, and the formal dining room are 3 sets of doors. Now, these doors weigh over 350 pounds each, and of course, as you can see, they are solid walnut and burled walnut. To get a cut of burled walnut this size and this length out of a walnut tree, you probably maybe get out of a very large walnut tree 4 or 5 single cuts. So he did put a lot of quality into the mansion. Incredible.
And those are, I guess, referred to as pocket doors. These go back in, and look at the very fancy, intricate work here all throughout. And who designed the house for him? Do you know?
Well, actually, I think it was a collaboration between Prescott and Sons, which were out of Keysville area. Also, we found out in 1982 and 83 that during an earthquake that rumbled through the mansion, that the fireplace, which we'll be seeing later on the tour in the music room, actually came ajar from the wall about 2 or 3 inches. And the Sork family that was here at the time running a bed and breakfast actually put their hands behind the wooden encasement around the fireplace as it came out, came in behind and pulled out the original hand-drawn sketching, architectural sketchings of the entire mansion done by Henry Graves. So the actual builder and owner had quite a bit to say about the construction of the home.
What year about was that, the earthquake?
The earthquake is somewhere between 1982 and 83.
Okay, one of our earthquakes, I remember the earthquake down in this area. There's also construction going on in the building, and one of the questions is, do we want to see this which is not finished? And the answer, of course, is yes. It's what it is. We'll take a short break right now, then we'll be going into this room, which is the
sitting room. Area.
But we'll be standing. But you're watching Hometown Cable. We're in AuSable Forks, New York, and our guest is Tom Campbell, and we're at the Graves Mansion in AuSable Forks. Be right back. We're back, and you did say sitting room, though.
Yes, as a matter of fact, this was considered the sitting room or reception area. If you can imagine this small room in which the double doors here, and this door were closed, it was small enough in which this fireplace over here, which we currently are doing a lot of renovation on, if this room's small enough to where the fireplace was blaring with heat, it could be heated up very quickly. Because right out through the door here is the portiture area. It's the area in which the circular driveway comes around, in which the Graves family during the winter would pull up in their sleds or their carriages, and of course without heaters like we have in our cars, the first place they would want to come into a reception area that was very warm and could be heated very quickly. As you can see over here on the wall, we're currently continuing our renovation process, and that the workers here have actually installed right below us in our furnace room some very high efficiency heating systems so that our energy costs will be lowered by around 30 to 50%.
Now, when we were outside, I mentioned that was probably your main entrance, but now,
Yes.
Was that the main, or was it?
Actually, that is what's considered in the Graves Mansion as the front door, the front entry into the vestibule area. Over here is what they call the portiture or portico area. This was an area in which was probably more frequently used. I think in most of our homes nowadays, we're in and out of the family room or that kind of a family room door rather than coming in the front door. Same kind of a situation. This is where deliveries were made. This is where people were greeted to come in.
It has a modern telephone. We'll be right back. Tom was just saying the phone doesn't usually ring that much, and Calvin said we're good for business, and we hope that's true, Tom. Another year when you have your tours. Now, this rug, that's not 1800.
No, as a matter of fact, this was put in about 4 years ago. It's a very high-grade industrial maroon carpeting. We knew that we would have quite a number of people in on tour, and rather than having everyone walk over the beautiful wood underneath, which we will have on display later on, we decided to put carpet down because it's so much easier to replace than beautiful hardwood floors that could get scraped up quite easily.
Oh, okay, so this will be picked up.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
It's all part of the renovation
All
process.
right. Now, this is part of the renovation. Now, this door goes out into the hallway.
Yes, it does. And it's once again the burled walnut and the solid walnut with the oak encasement on the outside.
In your studies, have you found out where this wood came from or where he got the material? Was it from New York? Was it... Do you know?
Well, as a matter of fact, most of our studies indicate that because the J&J Rogers Company owned over 150,000 acres of Adirondack wilderness in the Keene Valley to the High Peaks region, that they had their selection of wood. They had quite a number of selection, but they also had quite a number of artisans. The actual structure of the mansion, the interior, was built locally from local woods. Henry Graves not only went out into the European community and down to New York and Boston because he was very well traveled, he went over into Europe to look up local artisans there to come to the mansion to do a lot of the installation and the carving of the wood that was imported. So it's quite a combination We're still trying to get down to specifics and actually workers who did work on the mansion, but we're looking back into 1878, and a lot of that information isn't quite that available at this point.
You'll notice outside when Calvin was taking the pictures, the windows look narrow. The windows are narrower than you see in the homes today. There's probably a span of 2 feet here, maybe 18, 20 inches only for the total window across. That's common in that time.
Common in that time, and also the windows are actually quite high. Normal windows today would probably be about half that size.
Right. Do you know what the construction is in the wall? It's brick?
Yes, it is. It's a double brick. That was done, I believe, by Edward Hughes, who was the general mason on the project. He worked very closely with Prescott and Sons. And also, some of the walls range anywhere between a foot thick to 3 feet thick at different areas.
All right. Anything else we should know in here?
Actually, no, but if you'll follow me this way, we'll step into the showcase of the mansion, which is the formal dining room.
Oh, before we do, notice the mop boards here, we call them. They're a full foot, and they also have the molding all around them. And I noticed electricity. Now that was put in.
That was put in.
You don't see plugs like this in the old homes. That's one of the things that are missing in old homes is electrical plugs and closets. You just don't find normally,
So
right?
true.
Okay, we're going to the formal
dining room.
Oh yes, this door, as we look, appears to be at an angle here. Have you ever noticed that? It seems to lean one way. Do you know anything about that?
I believe probably this door was put in a little bit later.
I
believe that this thing here has just been used slightly.
Okay, it seems to lean, at an angle. You can see. Look at the door frame. You see how much it is right there? Maybe it's just because it's fastened with brackets. Probably a temporary type thing.
Put in later on.
Okay.
Simply because in the home here, the northern winds are the coldest that come down this way.
Right.
This does face north. When it opens up, this was put to stop the wind.
Okay.
And there are 2 heaters over here, 2 actual radiators that kind of, between the cold and the warm, and with them in there, neutralize the air so it doesn't get cold.
Okay. You'll notice the pocket door is also on this side of the sitting room and also going into the grand room. And the floor, real wide hardwood, wider than normal.
Well, yes, actually there's, I believe, about 5 different types of wood and a couple of different grains of wood here. You'll see a black walnut, a little bit lighter walnut, oak. There's also pine and some birch in the flooring here.
I have some floors like that at home, but that's because I didn't have the money to buy it all in the same type. But this was planned, by the way.
Yes, as a matter of fact, most of the flooring, even under the carpeted areas, is very similar to this. Speaking of flooring, in the formal dining room here area is probably one of the most interesting parts of the mansion. The flooring that you're looking at here is oak parquet. There are over 6,000 individual pieces of oak parquet in this flooring, and in the center here is a brass locking mechanism. The mechanism is designed in which a key specifically designed for this floor, when inserted, turned, and pulled up, will pull up the first of over 6,000 pieces to follow that can be folded up in a concentric puzzle-like fashion, and the entire floor can be removed to a different area. Also, once any structural work or whatever had to be done underneath, the floor can be completely brought back in and completely relaid down.
Have you ever seen this, that you or Mr. Fye ever seen this in any of the other homes he's been doing for 26 years?
As a matter of fact, the only evidence that we've found is actually through articles and people coming on tour and saying that there are similar floors in Victorians that are located down in the Newport, Rhode Island area. As a matter of fact, during construction at completion, people were actually having down there what they called floor wars. Something in which, instead of saying who's got the most beautiful car on the block or big screen TV, they were actually looking at the artistry and craftsmanship that went into building floors. They were in competition with each other, so to speak.
If you are allergic to wood, you will not want to come into this room. This is completely wood except for the chandelier and the light on the wall and the heaters. All oak.
All oak.
In all directions, and
As a matter of fact, on the sliding door, something interesting that we found out is that on one side of the sliding door, and with most of the doors that you'll see that go into the bedrooms, on this side here, to match up the interior of the formal dining room, you'll find solid oak with oak paneling. But on the other side here is your burled walnut and your burled walnut finish that actually matches all of the other doors on the center of the mansion. But you can see that all of the archways here are solid oak. So to match up for the room in here, Henry Graves specifically had the doors designed to match the interior. Speaking of interiors, you might want to take a look at the ceiling here. That is something that we really don't think we could replace. Do we have the artisans and craftsmen today that actually could do the work that you see up on the ceiling? All of those angles, every single board there are no gaps between anything. Specifically designed and crafted to match the other parts of the room. The chandelier that you see here is the only original chandelier left in the mansion. It's a brass chandelier. It originally burnt by candlelight. Later on, these canisters here were filled with oil for oil burning. Later on, it was plumbed for gas. And of course, today, electricity. And in the crystal there, you can once again see the ibex bird, the signature of the architect, repeated.
And in case you're questioning, there is no veneer on any part of this ceiling.
Absolutely.
That's wood. And you'll notice the, what's the name of that wood, these little panels. I know it, and it's
the parquet paneling.
But I mean the little slips that go across the wainscoting. But look at in every direction, in all styles, and he's not just satisfied with that. You've got all of the intricate work around it, and there's a lot of designs in the middle of this too.
We are just recently started to research that, and we have a feeling that that may have something to do with Henry Graves' affiliation with the Masons, something Masonic. We're not sure quite yet, but we should be getting, with the help of SUNY Plattsburgh and the history students out there, more information on that.
All right. This is the most startling room in the home, obviously.
Oh, most definitely. It is the showcase of the mansion.
And this was the dining, you said?
This was the formal dining room.
Formal dining room.
As a matter of fact, a table, solid oak table, was specifically designed for this room, and chairs designed for this room.
Okay, anything particular about the fireplace that we should note?
Well, actually...
well, while he's there, he's looking at, again, the same type of, well, this is looking at the work, even, that's right, over and under the windows here, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Completely. And at one time there were drapes across here too, I take it.
Yes.
That hid this whole section, because you'll notice on the top, the rods, Calvin, up here, for the rod that went across, so that the drapes hung right across here to keep this whole alcove out of the room. Amazing.
Absolutely amazing. The fireplace that you see here is made of oak and walnut, and the tiles that you see around the outside and the bottom are imported Italian tiles. I might also mention that all of the fireplaces on the first floor have chutes that go down into the basement, so that at the end of every week the servants would go around in the basement to all of the little carrying areas and collect the used embers. So the Graves family never really had to worry. All they had to do was put wood in the fireplaces, and that it would be cleaned up later.
Where did they keep the wood? You kept it right in the room here nearby? Do you have any idea?
Actually, the servants used to bring that in on a daily basis.
How many servants? Any idea how many servants?
Well, we have an estimation that there could have been anywhere between 5 to 15 servants, depending upon the time of year, what duties, how many guests would be in the mansion.
Okay, when we saw the other fireplace, which is under construction on the other side of the wall, there's a top like this that's in the very first room that we came into that will go back up.
That is correct, yes. That actually goes into the fireplace in the sitting room.
And you'll notice it's not symmetrical either here. I mean, there's not two panels on the other side, there's only one, so it's not set up in a symmetrical way at all. It's different. You know, you don't see the same direction on either side, and the next two are the same. He's just got, I'm sure there's a pattern to it, but not that you can see. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Did you have to do anything as far as refinishing this wood?
As a matter of fact, when Mr. Fye came into the property 12 years ago, there had been quite a number of things that had been done, and the wood had been buffed up and cleaned, although you can imagine over time how much dust does accumulate. One of the fortunate things about the mansion over the years is that it's been kept fairly dry. So you don't have a lot of moisture getting in which would taint the wood or any kind of fungus growth, etc. So the interior of the first floor here is almost exactly as you would have seen it back turn of the century when the Graves actually lived here at the mansion.
Is this a time at all to tell us who the Graves are?
Well,
Did that come along a little later?
Yeah, actually, that's really kind of an interesting story, and we, on the tour, normally
maybe we got to move here on these lights so you don't throw a shadow. Do you want to go to the better lighting on the other side, Calvin? Coming pretty good? We'll be right back. I'm sure if the background shows, you know we're still in the big dining room or the major dining room.
Formal dining room.
Formal dining room.
Yes.
All right, we're going to hear now about why it's called the Graves Mansion.
Well, that's kind of an interesting story. As we've done our research, we've hooked up with SUNY Plattsburgh, and we've gotten a lot of help from the Feinberg Library and Special Collections. Joe Swenyer has been an absolute incredible person to kind of steer us in the right direction. And we started looking at the history of Henry Graves, the man who actually built the mansion here. In his early 20s, Henry he came from a middle-class family in Plattsburgh. He decided to make something of himself, and since he was just working down at the docks and of course the train station down in Plattsburgh, not really making very much money for himself, he wanted to establish an apprenticeship with a large company. And he found out that the J&J Rogers Company, centered here in AuSable Forks, was doing a bang-up business in iron ore. They were one of the largest iron ore smelting plants that you could find up in this area. Later on, 1880s, they converted over into pulp manufacturing into paper. But at that time in his early 20s, he decided to come up here, see if he could get an apprenticeship, but then also found out that Mr. Rogers had 4 eligible young daughters. And he thought to himself that time, well, to advance within the company, it might be nice to become a family member. And he pursued the youngest of the 4 daughters, Mary, fell madly in love with her, and went to Mr. Rogers, the head of the J&J Rogers Company, and asked for her hand in marriage. Well, Mr. Rogers flatly declined his request simply because it was not the protocol for the time. The eldest of the daughters had to be married first. So Henry, being kind of an adaptable guy, went ahead and pursued Kate, the eldest. They got married, and
He married the oldest?
Yes, he did. And they had 3 sons, and they continued to live in the mansion very happily for quite a number of years. It wasn't until around, 1888 that the J&J Rogers Company, as we have read in the literature, actually found out that Henry had embezzled the $75,000 it took to build the mansion in construction funds. And in that terrible year of 1888, Henry was confronted by the J&J Rogers Company and saying, well, we'd like our money back for you building. And of course, Henry flatly refused. He was let go from his position, very high up in the company, and still stayed with the family. But as his punishment for taking the funds, he was forced to live his life out in the servants' quarters.
Of this house?
Of this house, yes. Quite a slap on the hand, so to
Yes,
speak.
I was reading, I've got some literature, he died at 91 years of age.
Very long life, as a matter of fact. We also found out, I believe, his wife Kate died just 30 days after that. He died, as a matter of fact, directly in the grand parlor in the center of the room, and that had been converted later on into kind of like a nursing care center.
1917. Probably didn't want to go to World War I, so he decided he would leave this world, and that's what he did. All right. And then what happened? Now, what happened to it after he died?
Well, in 1917, there was a general exodus from the house, and I believe his 2 sons no longer wanted to live here. I think one of them did for a little while, but we found in our research that a Mr. Featherston, I believe that was his name, was somewhat of a caretaker here. I don't know what part of the mansion he did live in. That's still part of our research. But between 1917 and the late 30s, the mansion was pretty much abandoned. During that time, the greenhouse out in the back deteriorated over time. The barns went down, the veranda which came off the music room, all of which we hope to replace and bring back to its original splendor in '94. We're really hoping for that. That's going to be quite a cost for, reconstruction. But during those 20 years and those 20 winters, the place was pretty much vacant. It wasn't until the late 30s that the Robert family, Louis Robert, moved in and established an insurance business where they had their offices in the reception room and also the grand parlor. He and his wife lived pretty much on the first floor of the mansion and began converting the second and third floor into apartments. So as you go up through the mansion, unfortunately, you will see that over time a lot of changes have been made, many of which we hope to return to the way the mansion did look at turn of the century when the Graves did live here.
Talking about those apartments, you people out there in northern New York that know Chris and Dale Changelo. She's a teacher at the Moores School, and Dale works for F.W. Myers, I believe it is, unless my mind is failing me. And they lived in one of these apartments, and they brought my daughter and my wife here a year ago on a tour they had for a short time. And my wife said, "You've got to get down there." She says, "You've got to get down there and make that tour. These young people that you had with the tours, it's great." And it just didn't work out. We couldn't get here. But after last night, well, it was a must, and Calvin was free this morning, so here we are. So after they left, there was a bed and breakfast?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the Sorg family came in and established a bed and breakfast here, which ran, I believe, for about 1.5 to 2 years. And they rented out, probably, I think, on good season, pretty much the entire mansion. And they also continued the renovation here. I believe that they really didn't do much in the way of doing major alterations to the mansion, but they did do quite a bit of improvements.
And then there came a time when Mr. Fye,
yes,
F-Y-E?
F-Y-E, Mr.
Okay.
Rod Fye. He's out of San Diego, California. He came up into this area at the request of a friend of his that was down in the Saratoga Springs area doing pretty much the same type of work that Rod had been involved in for over 20 years, restoration of Victorians, and told Rod that up in the Adirondacks, quite a number of the homes up here, larger homes, were deteriorating because of costs to maintain them. And he was told about this magnificent Victorian in an obscure little town of AuSable Forks. Came up here, took a look at it, fell absolutely in love with it, and said this property has got to be saved. It has not reached a point beyond repair or a salvage value. As a matter of fact, it's fairly well preserved. And it is a landmark in the Adirondack. As a matter of fact, one of the best kept secrets for over 114 years. So when Mr. Fye came out here, he decided that at that time, 12 years ago, that he would continue the restoration process and have this as his retirement home. But he moved to San Diego and got used to the weather there.
Okay, now, where was he from?
Actually, Rod hails out of Nebraska, but he has taught up and down the California coast in very specialized schools. He's also worked for Howard Hughes at one time, and he's been a writer now for the last 3 years, have a couple of books he's going to be publishing. And he decided during the 70s, while he was in San Francisco and looking at a lot of the redevelopment going on where they were bulldozing down Victorians, that he would get involved, save them, because he had such a love for this type of beauty that we're probably not going to see ever again. That he became interested to see if there was anything quite like that up in the Adirondacks. And he was cued in by one of his friends. They came out here, looked at the property, and he was in a position to take it over and continue with the restoration.
Now, he restores with the idea of selling them out after he restores them?
Most definitely.
You can't own too many like this unless you've got a real good income or a real good background with money.
Exactly. He had restored, I believe, a little over 100 units in the San Francisco area. And he had always been one not only to preserve, but also to make enough money to buy more of the same type. It wasn't exactly like buying a tract homes somewhere in the San Fernando Valley that look like so many other tract homes, but to go to those specific to the Victorian era, where the quality of craftsmanship, as you can even see here, was most valuable, rather than seeing it be lost for the eternity, that he would have a part in doing it. And that's what spurred him on to find other areas throughout the United States that these beautiful Victorians are.
When did Tom Campbell become associated with the Graves Mansion? When? How long?
I arrived in September of last year. That was my first time to come out to the area. Actually, I'm in upstate New York. Rod had for years talked about the mansion, showed me pictures, which never really did it any justice until I actually came on site to see it. And he became kind of worried that there was nobody out here to maintain the place, and he wanted to once again get public interest, etc., continue with the renovation process. And he said, well, Tom, why don't you come out and take a look? I thought I'd only be here for 2 weeks, but I ended up from actually September of last year till about January 15th, when it got a little cold here.
Yes, it does that. It does that.
So that's one of the reasons why in just a few days I will be returning to San Diego.
And coming back next summer.
Yes.
All right, we'll take another break. We're going to move now. We'll find out a little bit more about the history and what Mr. Fye has done and so forth as we proceed through the house. We've only seen 3 rooms, and remember, there's 31, so I don't know if we'll be spending this much time in the other rooms. And this man might be tired. You ever get tired of talking about this home?
There was a time where...
You're supposed to say, no, never get tired. No?
There was a time in the middle of the summer where we were averaging a couple of hundred people a day.
That many?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and I had 3 tour guides assisting me, and at the point of that, I did get tired. But the more we find out, the more there is to tell, and it's surprising how many people come back every 1 or 2 months to take a tour here, simply because we keep finding out more and more that we can add to our tour presentation.
It's amazing. That's amazing that you have that many people. Where do you advertise?
Well, actually, we didn't really have to advertise a lot. As a matter of fact, we pulled any type of advertising we had simply because the response was overwhelming. And there are so many people who come through who volunteer simply because they want to do the right thing. It's a total win situation. We want to provide this for the public. We want this to be a multi-use facility, and it's very interesting. The history, the deeper we dig, the more that we find out. And we want the highest quality of presentation possible as people do come through.
When you come and see this home in '94, say that you saw Calvin and Bob on TV and you saw Tom, and that's why you're here. Then if he wants to be angry at somebody, it could be because he talked too much to us and made you interested in coming here. And you really, this video will not do it justice, although we're moving right along and we're going to move. Thanks for watching Hometown Cable. Tom Campbell, Graves Mansion, AuSable Forks, New York. I'm Bob Venn, and Calvin Castine behind that camera as usual. We're on our way to this 1880 home where we're going to see some more of the rooms.
Yes, as a matter of fact, as we go through the rest of the mansion, you might notice that there have been a lot of alterations to meet the needs of the different owners who had been here over time. So at this point, we're going to walk through this next area here, the butler's pantry, but we're going to go from 1878 right up to vintage 1954.
Will we notice it?
Now, oh yes, it's quite shocking here, as a matter of fact.
Going through a pantry of some kind. We'll look at that later. Because of the light, we'll probably have Calvin will probably go around to the window and look in this other direction. Sorry. Okay, we're back. We're in the kitchen. This is different.
Yes. This is an addition, actually, that what we call on our tour the vintage 1954 pink kitchen. Now, as you can see, these are metal up here, of course, metal down here. The sink is also pink. Excuse the dishes in there. But as you can see, this was not originally where the original kitchens were. They were located at the end of the servants' quarters, actually where the garage is right now. And we thought to ourselves, well, maybe we should rip this out and put this back as a storage room as it was turn of the century. But believe it or not, This is almost 40 years old. It's a third of the life of the mansion. We've decided to keep this in here because this is vintage. This was only put in when the Robert family lived here. They were accommodating themselves for a kitchen for themselves here on the first floor, which they occupy. But the more interesting part of this is actually...
Well, just a minute. We got to look at this right here, Calvin, first. This is my time. Youngstown Kitchens. When we moved to Cooperville in the middle 40s, we put in a Youngstown kitchen in late 40s, right there, just like this. It was all white like this. All right, we got to note that, you know.
40s, 50s.
And remember, of course, you got the hood. You know, they didn't have those in the 1880s.
Quite amazing changes.
All right, now I'm sorry, you can go.
Oh yes, as a matter of fact, the more interesting part is actually the view we get through the window here. What you see on the outside there is the stone foundation for the greenhouse. Now this is something we hope to also renovate in the spring of '94. The actual greenhouse itself went up around 30 to 40 feet high, and it was glass and oak. And the Graves family had year-round vegetable garden. They had fruit trees back here, and it was heated by the excess heat drawn from the forges at the mill. All of that heat was pumped over here. So as you can see, there was also a servant's entry from the basement below us out into the greenhouse. Up in the upper right-hand corner of the greenhouse extension out there, we have found another room. And we believe down in that room, if we were to break through one of the walls towards the mansion here, that we would actually come across the hidden wine cellar.
You mean way at the other end?
Way at the other end
right?
on the outside.
You mean you could go down into there?
You can go down underneath the greenhouse.
Is that right?
Excuse me.
Yep. We don't make any secrets. We change batteries, and as we did, we noticed that the normal windows here on the outside, these are storm windows put on the inside, again, to conserve heat. And those, I imagine, when they were living here, would come down in the summer, because you certainly wanted air. And Calvin noted, when I noticed Youngstown Kitchens, he noticed Republic Steel, because Republic Steel, of course, had their offices, some of their offices, in Lion Mountain for many years. And this, by the way, was I think at one time was a sink. This was the sink that you had right in the middle of the sink, just as this is. And that, I think, was in the... We moved to Shazy, Cooperville area in about 1944, and I wasn't then, but we renovated between there and 1947 when I went into service. So I was in that area. That originally, of course, they went on the years after that. We also turned on the lights. This is not 1880 either. See, the big lighting on right in here, and notice what he thought was probably a fluorescent light across the top for years ago. Mm-hmm. But it was very functional. Now, you live here, right? You live right here?
Yes, I do.
You get your choice of the rooms?
As a matter of fact, I have one up on the second floor. It's mainly because of my computer hookup that there's the correct...
So you have one room, it's a bedroom, everything combined.
Yes, bedroom, office,
and this is your kitchen.
My kitchen.
And you haven't done your dishes this morning.
No,
because you were out late last night at the Plattsburgh, at Clinton County Historical.
Yes.
Do you do that very often, go out and talk about the mansion?
As a matter of fact, I'm asked quite a lot. As a matter of fact, I've been asked quite a bit this summer. Unfortunately, I've had to stay here at the mansion to conduct most of the tours. I have the Rotary Club from AuSable Forks coming through this Thursday, and I've had quite a number of senior groups come through. We've had groups from the elementary schools just to see the look on the kids' faces as they come through. It's been quite entertaining. Next year we would like to invite even more groups to come through the mansion as an educational experience for them.
Okay, now, what is this? Is there a charge to come in? Is it a donation? What is the story?
We suggest to help us out for our NICEC bill. You can imagine when we light up the entire mansion, 31 rooms, and how many bulbs are burning, plus our heating costs, that we suggest a renovation donation of $3 per adult, $1 per child, which is entirely optional. We have quite a number of people who come back and say, you know, the tour was just absolutely wonderful. When they do come back, we normally don't suggest. It's whatever anyone would like to contribute, and that goes basically to our heating bill. Mm-hmm. We have an extraordinary heating bill here, if you can imagine, but as you saw in the renovation in the reception area, we have now installed a very high efficient Modine system, which will cut down on our oil usage during the more severe winter months.
If I can repeat, because I heard it last night, you were talking $15,000-$16,000 for the utilities, and
that's basically what it'll run. That's what it'll run. If you consider just the oil costs plus the electric costs, and I believe we're a little bit more expensive on this side of the river. We did have a highly inefficient system working, and Rod has determined that we do a lot more insulation, which we have over the summer. We've secured all of the windows to make sure that there's no airflow coming through, tightened up on that. We've put more insulation up into the attic. We've also sealed off the attic a way in which the floor of the attic was completely open and most of the heat was going right up through and through the actual roofing itself. We've insulated all of that, and we've installed a very high efficiency boiler downstairs for the Modine system, and we're also modifying the radiators, the 24 radiators on the first and second floor, to work at a very high efficiency and a temperature control.
One of the other expenses a home like this must have, and the more you improve it, the more it's going to cost you, are land taxes.
Well, yes, that is something that we're doing some investigation into right now. It's something that Mr. Fye is looking into very carefully. This is somewhat of a little bit of a controversy, which I believe if you want to find more information about that particular aspect, you might want to talk with the owner specifically.
Okay. Now the just slipped my mind as I was going to ask you too. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I noticed that this is not plaster. Is it?
No,
this is wallboard in here. Most of the house is plaster.
Yes.
Or wood.
Yes.
Right.
And as you can see, this is also not a 12-foot or 14-foot
no,
ceiling.
Right.
This is all drop ceilings, which were added later on.
Yep.
Above it, of course, is the additional wiring and electrical and, of course, plumbing.
I think Calvin should get a picture of this door, because you're not going to see many pink doors in this house and the rest of the tour. Now, this is an oak or walnut door, right?
Yes.
And it's painted pink, you know. Well, of course, my mother, we had an old oak china closet, and instead of varnishing, which is a little harder, she painted it yellow.
Yes.
Bright, shiny yellow, you know, and it took a long time to strip that down. They did that in the 50s and the early 60s.
The style to do that.
Yes, and of course, you people, this is not 1950s here, I don't think. There's your place for your towel, and many of the towels were a complete revolution. You just keep turning, you know. And it's real high, so they must have had a real long one here. Woodwork, same way. Okay, where do we do now?
How about we step out into the hallway on our way over to the library?
All right. Don't forget, our tour guide today, and taking his valuable time when he's got a day off, he's here with Hometown Cable. It's Tom Campbell, and we're at the Graves Mansion. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, great. I just wanted to point out a couple of things here in the hallway. As you can see, there's quite an extensive use of wood. The darker wood is a black walnut. There's also oak and several other different types of wood in the designs here. You might notice that there is a squared off design in the center here, but then there are an additional two designs that run down this way and also another one over there. It just kind of forms symmetrically to the design within the flooring here. Most of the other flooring throughout the house underneath the carpeting is very similar to this. Also, you might take a look at the wainscoting on all of the walls here. That is a combination of oak and black walnut.
For the younger people in the audience watching, I say that's anybody younger than me, with plaster walls, you had problems on the corners because you'd nick them and so forth. So he has this wood, not only because it's beautiful, because it has a purpose to stop it from nicking and losing the corners of the plaster that was up there. And doors all over. The wood is... to me, I just love wood. Again, that appears to be wood. They painted the wood along the ceiling here. Sometimes they drop that down with the same color as the ceiling. Sometimes they bring it up with the colors of the wall, or they leave it natural.
Kind of own preference. Speaking of wood, let me show you some of the beautiful bookcases that we have here.
Okay, well, before we go in, a little unusual in the house right there.
That's something that we put up in a way, and yet it is kind of it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But this is really a system that was very much needed in the mansion, especially our heating systems here during the winter time. As you know, we do leave midwinter when things do die down here, and we've installed a Modine system. We have a boiler which is in the basement which heats up very hot water. The hot water is pumped all the way up to the 3rd floor, where we have a little bit smaller unit than this, which is basically a radiator with a fan behind it, through almost like a car radiator, where the hot water filters down through. The fan from the back puts quite a bit of pressure, big wind goes through the mansion continuously to keep things dry. But when we're not here, nobody is occupying the mansion, about 50 to 55 degrees. A little cool for us, but perfect for the pipes so they don't freeze.
But the radiators still operate too at that time?
Oh yes.
That are in the
As a
rooms
matter
in
of
addition?
fact, when it does get down, as I've heard it does here, into the below 0 point. I haven't had
It'll
experience
do
yet.
that. Yes, yeah, it'll do that.
Thanks. That's when our main boiler sends up the needed heat to the 24 radiators on the 1st and 2nd floor. And that really does the trick. That'll bring it up to 70 degrees within about an hour.
Okay, excuse me for interrupting.
Yes,
We're off to see
please
books.
Come on into the library here.
Oh, wow. Wow.
As you can see here in the library are some absolutely exquisite oak bookcases. These were original to this area, and as you can also see, the doors here with the burled walnut, the framing around all of the doors, the replacement chandelier. There's, of course, the plaster medallion up on top, which we will be repainting very soon.
Big difference whether it's painted or not painted, isn't
definitely, definitely. It's a beautiful ornament.
Yep.
Over here, this is a slate fireplace. This is something we believe, and we're researching right now where the slate actually came from. We think it was from the quarries over in Vermont. And of course, you can see the Italian tile that was designed into it. And of course, the grate out front, which is original. The wallpapering you see in here and the rest of the house is almost an exact duplicate of the original wall coverings that were here during the Graves occupation of the mansion. And also you can see that the bookcases are empty of books. We have had a number of volunteers come over and actually look and tally and categorize all of the books by author, by publisher, by date, and we've put that on a computer disk. We've sent it down to New York. They're going to give us a priced estimate on the more valuable books. Those we will have out on display under glass, and the rest of the books we will have up on the 3rd floor, and where we're creating a library in which everybody can look through Henry Graves' collection of books.
And they won't be in this room per se.
We really don't want to put them back down in this room, simply because we don't want to lose the glass that you see in the bookcases themselves. Probably one of the most stunning parts of this area down here is the restroom.
Can I, just before you go there, this is plywood back here.
There are some of these had been moved, and the original backing to it was actually oak. You can see in some of these, I believe in here, for instance, the groove that was made. All of these bookcases at one time, when the Robert family lived here, because this here, which was the library and music room originally, which we brought back to being the library, were actually their bedrooms. And all of these bookcases here lined the hallway up on the 2nd floor.
All right.
We have since brought them back down to their original location.
Calvin, I don't know if you can see, but look at the corners. Did you see the corners in the shot? Where all the notches, and you can move these shelves a notch at a time. They're all built in. One thing you mentioned last night, the most valuable part is glass.
Well, we think that, and we're doing the research right now to see if there's any connection between the Redford Glass Company and the glass that we have here in the mansion. We know that a restaurant, I believe it's called the Royal Savage, does have some of the Redford glass on display, and we're researching to see if there's any bill of sale records that indicate that Henry Graves did buy the Redford glass for the mansion. That's something we're still researching at this time.
Okay. Beautiful. Now, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. We're heading toward a restroom.
Yes, as a matter of fact, this is the library restroom. It has been refurbished to the original wall coverings. And, of course, here's something really quite special.
Yes.
What you see there is solid marble countertops, and those are hand-painted ceramic bowls. And that is the original plumbing that you see there, copper plumbing.
For what time? For the 1878?
You bet, you bet.
Indoor plumbing?
Yes.
I was going to say, when was this added? It was back in that long. I didn't realize that. Look at that. All here, right here in the mansion. And again, it costs some money just to replace this wallpaper. That's a big project.
As a matter of fact, this room was originally Henry Graves' vault.
Right.
This is where he would open up and, of course, put all of his important papers back here, his documents, etc. So this was his little keeping right off this main
Here's
line.
another one of those, Calvin, in here you might want to check. Another sink like that, a matching sink with a door for the water closet in here, and then there's you can use both at the same time. Look at the very different plumbing you have in the fixtures in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very
now,
nice.
This could have been an addition later on with the adaptation of plumbing, and this couldn't have been just right off in 1878.
Right.
This is something that we're still researching.
Would that have been done in the United States more? Did you mention that? What would these?
This could have been bought in Italy and brought over. As you notice on one of them, it does have a crack, and we have a picture of that crack dating back into the early 30s. So, we're thinking it could be sometime before then.
Beautiful. As we start in this row, I want to position you. As we first took our pictures of the house, when we first started, we're right in that very front on the left. It's where we're located.
That's
just
correct.
To the left of the stairway as we come in. And where are we now, Tom?
We're actually in the music room. This room was used by the Graves family pretty much for entertaining. As you can see, it has a beautiful fireplace with, of course, once again, the arch up towards the top to redirect the hot air from the fireplace back into the center of the room. And this room was very unique in that at one time it housed a square harpsichord piano. And we have just found the location of that. It's about a block and a half away. We hope to get that back into the mansion. These double doors here opened up into a veranda area or porch area in which during the summer on a warm night, of course, people entertaining, singing near the piano would go out onto the veranda area. There was also a harp in here, and we believe that there was an additional desk in here for Henry Graves.
You have to remember there was no TV back in the 1880s,
Nope.
and he died in 1917. So through that period, you didn't have your entertainment you made for yourself.
That's very true.
Or you told stories, or you went to bed early.
That's right.
And the families grew and grew.
Yep. A lot of time to keep warm.
You know, the feeling you have in a room with 14 feet is that it's much bigger than it really is as far as square footage. You get that feeling. Right? This is a good chance to show the shutters folded back in a room, what it looks like when they're open.
Mm-hmm.
This room, all shutters are open, and of course the double windows, but you can see that this is the shutters. What are they? That's just 115 years still working perfectly.
As a matter of fact, this is the only room in which there was just a little bit of damage to the shutters, and probably because of the it would be that southeastern exposure where there would be more sun.
More sun that would affect them,
and
absolutely.
That's all part of the renovation process. We will be restoring that.
Right. You know, also, you notice the windows, they were on chains that with counterweights inside that helped you to raise the window because they're much larger here than they are in some of the other places. But that's what those chains are for. Tom, when we were coming in, we mentioned the floor, but I didn't know much to say about it except that it had a nice pattern. And what are we talking about?
Actually, this is imported Italian ceramic tile. It is very Victorian in its design, and there is a little bit of a story behind it in that Henry Graves was kind of a feisty guy, and he didn't particularly get along with his father-in-law. And he knew that his father-in-law really hadn't liked Italian tile or anything to do with this type of thing. So right at the doorway as everybody would enter, just to kind of put a little dig into his father-in-law, he did put Italian tile in here, as the story goes. Quite an interesting man.
Well, he had to move from the youngest to the oldest daughter in order to get in the family. All right, we're at the bottom of the stairway.
Yes, as a matter of fact, this is probably the second showcase of the mansion, is just the staircase itself. There is two different types of wood here, all handcrafted. It's oak and also black walnut. And this stairway extends all the way up to the second floor, around, down the hallway, and all the way up to the third floor of the mansion. It's really quite extensive. As a matter of fact, this lamp was plumbed for gas at one time, and because the gas distribution was up on the third floor, there is a pipe that runs straight through the center of the banister all the way up to the third floor.
Sudden interruption there because of a battery. We're sorry, Tom. This
No,
happens
that's quite all right.
with hometown cable. All right, you were just mentioning about the pipes that go through the
Yes,
banister.
as a matter of fact, the pipe gave a little of the gas needed for the lamp here, but I also wanted to mention, architecturally speaking, about the staircase that goes up. As of all the heating units and the fireplaces on the first floor and second floor were designed, they would heat the rooms, and when the rooms would become warm enough, the heat would come out into the hallway here and actually have no other way to go but up through, kind of a siphoning effect in a way, up through the center of the mansion up to the third floor using the staircase here being the center of the mansion, so that there are no heating elements required up on the third floor. The staircase is absolutely beautiful. As you can see, even on the underside of the staircase,
Yep.
from the second up to the third floor, is entirely wood. Absolutely beautiful. And we have installed a small lighting system.
Oh, you've installed that. Okay,
Yes,
I
that
wondered
was
about
installed a little bit later on, but of course you can also see the beautiful wainscoting as it goes up.
that. Right.
Absolutely one of the second most beautiful parts of the mansion.
Of course, we're doing an overall view here. We aren't going to be here for all day, and I imagine some of the things you're telling me you expound on more when a
yes.
tour.
As a matter of fact, the staircase here is the most mysterious part of the mansion tour, and we kind of save that for when people do come through.
All right.
And that it is the key to Henry's mystery and secrets of the mansion.
And again, I want to mention that the TV can do no justice to what you will see when you come here in 1994.
You
And
bet.
tell you that Bob and Calvin sent you.
Exactly.
And you want to see the guy in person that did the talking on Hometown Cable.
Well, why don't we venture
Okay.
on up to the second floor, and we'll take a look at the historical part of the mansion, which involves the president, President Grover Cleveland. Get off the Modine system
Okay.
for...
I don't know about Calvin and Tom, but to me this is one of the most impressive sights I've seen in the building so far, even to your formal dining room. This is absolutely beautiful, looking at the stairway down, the stairway up, and then looks like we're going to go outdoors over here.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's the historical part of the mansion. That's what we call the Grover Cleveland balcony.
One minute, but notice these spindles here, and then 4 of them over there. I mean, it just overwhelms you. There's no way you can see all this at once on TV. So when you come here, you will see this, the wainscoting with all of the intricate work, the panels, individual panels in front. And then they're hanging from the ceiling some more of those spindles. You know, there's 4 more. Okay, well, tell us about Mr. Cleveland.
Yes, as a matter of fact, as we go down the hallway here on the second floor, you'll also notice the archways once again, and that's for the structural integrity of the mansion. Now, if you can imagine, this archway here below us is the first set of double doors that leads into the vestibule area, and of course these double doors here. Once again, we have the stained glass, which is up in the archway, and actually when you look out here, you can actually see this was a position in which Grover Cleveland, during his administration, came to AuSable Forks to actually visit with Henry Graves. Henry Graves being the leading industrialist of the area. And of course, Grover Cleveland was very familiar with the Adirondack region in that he at one time spent his honeymoon up in the Tupper Lake area. So when he came to visit Henry, it was pretty much of a big hoopla here, and over 2,000 people gathered on the lawn in front of the mansion here to hear, of course, Grover Cleveland speak on the state of the economy, where he wanted, of course, lower inflation and lower unemployment and most of the things I think we hear pretty much today. As a matter of fact, our students out of SUNY Plattsburgh are just getting together and doing research that we could capture the speech that was reported that he gave here at the Graves Mansion.
I think he talked on universal health care.
He probably did. Do you know? I don't know. Grover Cleveland was the 1890s, huh?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and that coincided with pretty much Henry Graves at his peak,
yes.
With his involvement with the J&J Rogers firm, and I believe he was vice president at the time.
Okay. I would assume that Mr. Rogers had died at the time and did not know that the president came to visit his son-in-law here. I think the Rogers would have died by then.
I see.
Because he would died at 91, and he was certainly younger than his father-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So
I think it was just a few years before the start of the mansion, I believe, somewhere around there.
Can we go on about them?
okay.
Can we go on about them?
If you'd like to, it's kind of messy. I've got my my stuff out of the way here. As you can see, there's going to be a lot of work done.
Yes, the wood is a problem with weather, you know. But we are standing where the president, Grover Cleveland, stood, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yes, as a matter of fact, he gave a speech to a little over 2,000 people that were standing right out here on the lawn. And as you can see, the walkway coming up to the front of the house is quite extensive, and the size of the trees on the property. The trees, with really no competition, they grow quite large. They grow quite large.
And you mentioned a lilac. Is this the lilac bush
That's
right here
the
to the left?
lilac
Right
tree
here, this
right in
large tree
front
right there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Now, there appears to be the leaves lined up. Is that just there's not a ditch or anything on either side of that sidewalk, but it looks like the leaves, for some reason, there's a depression.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are at the forks of the river, and the land does, from the mansion here, slope down steadily. And on both sides of the walkway are the drainage areas.
Oh, all right. Do you get any water here when it floods at all?
Not at all. Henry Graves was smart enough to actually build on higher ground, a little bit higher than most of the rest of the town. And you might also notice that we're only up on the second floor, but look at how high up we are.
Yes.
I mean, we're quite high.
Right. We want to remind you, as we look, as you come through AuSable Forks heading toward J, you'd be just outside of those houses. Mm-hmm. And that road right over the top of that station wagon is Route
9N.
9N. And so this is a little bit off. It's on the interior, which you don't ever see this when you go by unless you look for it. And please look for it, right, Tom?
You bet.
All right. We're outside, and this is where we were looking before at the very intricate brickwork. You can see here.
As a matter of fact, just around the corner here on the other side of the house, the southern exposure, you'll see a insignia on the side of the wall which says EH, and that's for Edward Hughes, who was the general mason who worked on the brickwork on the exterior of the home. It's still in fairly good shape for being over 114 years old.
Certainly is. And here it is right here. You know, they went into, is that granite probably?
Yes.
Granite, the 3 sections. Okay, we'll go inside. Goodbye, President Cleveland.
As a matter of fact, this is the continuation of the stairway up into the 3rd floor, and when we get up to the 3rd floor, I can show you some of the research materials that we've put up on the walls on the hallway to kind of give people an idea of the history of the mansion, AuSable Forks, the J&J Rogers Company, also a little bit more on Grover Cleveland. But I might also point out at this time that the wallpapering that you see here is almost an exact duplicate of the originals, and this was put in about 4 years ago. We also have a fire alarm system. We also have your fire extinguishers on every single floor. And we also, of course, you can see the smaller Modine unit over in the corner here. Why don't we take a walk down the hallway?
I noticed, I might mention the safety precautions with your night lights along the floor, so you can see, because it is dark in this area. And notice this particular, look at this panel right in here. I just happened to notice. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful woodwork, beautiful, absolutely. Some of the nicest I have ever seen and I never saw so much of it in one place. Because I haven't been to a lot of Victorian homes.
It's surprising the quality of craftsmanship that you do find in most Victorians. It was the splendor of its time. It was the culmination of long years of craftsmanship and kind of a lifetime experience of perfecting one's craft. In here, in this room here, is the largest room in the house, and this was actually Henry Graves' bedroom.
Henry's bedroom, not Mr. and Mrs. Henry.
Well, this was Henry Graves' bedroom,
Okay.
and I believe Kate had her place in here.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to say, sometimes they have adjoining rooms. We were over at the Webb estate, and they had adjoining, each had their own room with connecting doors, of course, but they had their own private room.
Is Henry a Casablanca fan?
This actually was a later addition. As you can see, things have been modified. As a matter of fact, during the Robert time, this room here, the room next to us over here, and the room on the end which I occupy, these three rooms were all one apartment. As with the other side of here, they had converted those two rooms into an apartment. They all shared a separate bathroom. They all shared a separate laundry area. And of course, in the center room here, they had converted into somewhat of a family room kitchen facility.
All right. That was the biggest problem, is getting water in some of these rooms and to have the kitchen, you know. But this is an old piece of furniture.
This is one of the only pieces of furniture that we have left in the mansion, and we believe it is somewhat of a Victorian, although I think the last date of manufacture on this specific design was 1870. So we're still researching.
Was that in the basement, you know?
No, as a matter of fact, that was up here on the third floor.
It looks like moisture might have taken the bottom, you know?
That is a possibility.
This isn't a local picture by any chance.
No, as a matter of fact, that's a
Lake Tahoe. Oh, Lake Tahoe, yes. I see there's a little, it looks like some dampness there on the edge. Of course, you're likely to get it more on the edges, you know, than anywhere else.
There are certain areas in the mansion that we have experienced leaks, but a couple of years ago, Rod had gone ahead and completely redid the roofing on the house. The original roofing here was all slate tile, but of course after 100 years you can expect a certain amount of deterioration where things had to be fixed. Most of what you see here, the leaks have been fixed. It's mostly just cosmetic at this point.
I was going to ask you about the roof ceiling, but is this looking out toward the back?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Can we talk about the church and maybe right from here?
Well, as a matter of fact, one of the more interesting things that we found out in our research is that Henry Graves had kind of a little bit of a temper. He was the leading industrialist in the area. He also had a lot of friends in the area, but he didn't particularly get along with the Episcopal minister. And one day, while they were having a sermon in the Episcopal church, the minister made some rather condescending remarks to Henry Graves, and Mr. Graves took a little bit of offense to it. So one day after being assaulted at church, Henry Graves came home, came out to the back here, and started construction on a much-needed outhouse for the servants. So if you'll notice here, the architectural design of the ice house in the back is almost exactly similar to the Episcopal church in town, in which he did have a falling out with the Episcopal minister.
You own the property behind?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that extends out about 9 acres. The mansion sits on approximately 9.3 acres of land, and it's all wooded out in the back. As a matter of fact, beyond that is pretty much all wilderness, Adirondack wilderness land. We just have AuSable acres, and then of course it's pretty much wilderness all the way up to Whiteface in the ski center.
The rain or the snow melting, does it cause any problems coming down that into your yard?
Not really at all. I believe that may have been a problem towards turn of the century, and that all of what you see here and all of the mountains surrounding here is new growth. During that time that Henry Graves lived here, everything in this area was pretty much cut. So this is all new forest.
This is also a different type of fireplace?
Yes, that is a marble and slate combination fireplace.
Beautiful. We'll be seeing repetition now, so we won't be into every room. Again, the corner protection and design, this whole corner. What a beautiful alcove here. And again, we have a medallion. Is that plaster?
Yes,
you don't
that is
know,
a plaster medallion.
Plaster medallion at the top.
That's probably one of the only original parts of the ceiling that you see here. This has all been modified.
I wonder if this was clear wood at one time. Probably not, 'cause that looks like it would be pine up there. I'm not sure.
Not really sure either.
Because you see the knots when they painted it. Okay. We're across from Henry's bedroom into a smaller room that you thought might have been like one of the kitchens when they had the apartment?
As a matter of fact, when the Robert family lived here and they started making modifications to the second and third floor, the adjoining room over here, which was originally Henry Graves' room, this room here, and through what is now a closet over here into the other bedroom, this whole side of the building was an apartment at one time. And you might notice here a little bit of our renovation process going on. You can see how thick the walls are, made of plaster and a lot of brick working on the inside. And we have just installed another flue for the chimney, a stainless steel. So there are improvements going on as we speak. As a matter of fact, you might notice that this is a triangular space when you go out into the hallway that contains a lot of the different chimneys going from the different fireplaces, not only in the basement, but first floor, going straight up.
Right, they come in probably from all three sides.
You bet.
And this was an opening before for the heat to go up, right?
As a matter of fact, no, this was complete wall down through here.
Oh,
and
so they have taken the brick out.
They have actually taken the brick out to be able to put this stainless steel tubing into it. Yes, it was quite a job.
And it's probably, I know my daughter in Champlain that ran one from the basement to it was 32 feet, I think, up to and they had a 2.5-story house. This is probably going to be,
oh gosh,
50,
60, maybe
60, 70 feet.
Yes.
It has to be, and it protects the, no matter what happened, you can use your fireplaces, and then the new extra heating, extra heat for this new system.
This is actually a system which is connected to the oil burners that we do have down for the heat for the house, and this is their exhaust that goes up through. The other spaces behind here are used for the fireplaces that are located below us.
Now, the 20 years or so nobody lived here, there was no heat, nothing in the house.
Well, see, we are still researching that, in that there had to have been somebody here, either in the house or in the servants' quarters, that maintained a certain amount of heat.
Because there are no damaged walls, basically. We can notice anyway, you know. We got to notice over in here, one of the few doors where there's a couple cracks. Now, whether that's a change of heat or not, it's one of the few where it's split.
It could be. It could possibly be.
Okay, we're on the second floor. We're over the top of
the portico area. This is the portico balcony, and as you can see, you get a pretty good view of the entire property that surrounds the mansion. Across the street where the elementary school is was actually part of the property at one time, in which they had fruit trees and a vegetable garden. And all of the forest that you see here during Henry Graves and turn of the century had been cut. Everything was completely cut. The AuSable River, the fork of the AuSable River, runs right behind the school here to the center of town. The other fork runs behind all of these homes and joins right down here towards the center of AuSable Forks.
You know, the only thing I miss in this whole home is what I would consider to be a beautiful long view, except for the mountains we see here, but there isn't what I would call a beautiful view. It's right in the middle of the community.
Exactly.
You can't see very far, even in 1878, you know. It's not like you're on a hill looking like many homes are in San Francisco and so forth. You can look out, but imagine none of these homes were here probably at the time. Now, somewhere along the line, you said this house was for sale for $45,000 back in the 20s or something, you said?
So quite a while back it was listed where you could have picked it up for just pennies on the dollar. But as time goes, when you look at real estate's based on location and economic times, and I'm sure during the Depression it was probably a lot easier to pick up properties like this. And of course today I think there is an growing interest in these beautiful big Victorians, in that their replacement value estimate is really pretty difficult to determine.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of an estimate on?
Well, we've been given estimates anywhere from 2.5 million up to around 5 or 6 million.
To replace?
It's just that when you look at a structure this large and you take into consideration the labor and you take into consideration some of the materials that were used that may not be quite as easily available as they were back then, and then of course the craftsmen that it was needed to place everything, you know, into the mansion, the craftsmanship involved.
Yeah. Last night, Tom, you mentioned something about the window that was between the two chimneys.
Yes,
I think that was interesting. You might want to see it over here, Calvin.
Well, actually, why you see is two chimneys up here. One chimney goes all the way down into the grand parlor, which was the 12-foot beautiful fireplace that we saw on the first floor. That goes up one side. And then on the second floor, you can see the windows here, is where the second fireplace is. It's actually in my room. And that fireplace goes right up to the other side of the chimney.
Now, in many homes, your chimneys are up the middle of the house, not on the side of the outside, and they centralize them out in the middle of roofs. But this is, as a matter of fact, as you drive around the countryside, look and see how many you see where there's chimneys like this. Except for, well, fireplaces in some of the houses today, they aren't very ornate outside, but they're.
Actually, I believe that there are 6. There were originally 7, but 6 chimney chutes that went up, and there is one directly in the center of the house, and that's where our heating from the basement goes up through. And also on the servants' quarters out here, you can see that there's an additional chimney that is not in use at this time, but is at the end of the servants' quarters. Where the garages sit now, that whole area there was the kitchens. That's where they did all the food preparation, etc.
Downstairs too, and it was the doors were put in later.
You bet. That whole area was the kitchen facility.
There's our outhouse out there in the back, which later became the ice house.
Ice house. It was also used to house some animals, and now today, actually, we just have it as a storage shed.
For you younger people, when we say outhouse, we don't mean a house that's outside of the regular house. We mean that was your bathroom back in those days, and. That was the house there. That was later an ice house, which must have kept the ice very well with the sawdust during the summer. Okay, we'll go back inside. This is very interesting, and you'll notice that very intricate work out here. It's been a nice place to sit, too.
Oh, very nice. As a matter of fact, we have pictures, more pictures up on the 3rd floor of the mansion through time. I think you'll find quite interesting. We're developing a museum and library up on the 3rd floor.
Okay. Imagine Henry, many times, this is a bedroom right here, might have walked out here at night, just sat here when it was warm, just said, hey, you know, I own this beautiful home.
Yes.
Me and the company.
Very proud. There you go.
All right, we're on the 3rd floor. We just came up this beautiful staircase, and I get up here, and I am shocked. What is all this white paint on these doors?
Well, over time, you know, the different eras, I think it went from the Victorian splendor era to mechanistic modernism, in which everything that was beautiful was painted over either one color or not. As you can see, it's the same oak framing on all of the doors that you see downstairs. The only difference is that it's been painted over.
Yep. And some of the owners must have decided that the door handles would look nice in other places. In previous owners. Here's one here they've adapted because look, it's I guess it's gone. And they've done, and this one here they've replaced with the glass, which is old, but it's not what belonged there. Someone got himself a souvenir, one of the owners along the way. And it kind of, I hate to see that, but now,
it's something that we're very seriously considering bringing back and stripping down. It's just a very, very long process.
But again, Tom, it's what has happened. This is to show what does happen, and you've got splendor down below. How many bedrooms up here?
Actually, I believe we have a total of 5 bedrooms here. And we also have a stairway of no return right behind you here. It's one of the mysteries of the mansion. As you can see here, the knob is gone.
Maybe that's why he took it off. Nobody would fall down. It goes nowhere. Yeah.
As you can see, there was another board that probably laid flat over the top here, in which later on it was converted into a closet or storage area. But these stairs originally were led down to the servants' quarters, which is right next door here. And this is the back stairs that most of the servants used at one time. And as you can see, modifications have been made along the way. Even look at the color scheme here, quite a bit different This is what they painted over. So this white paint isn't only on top of the wood.
Yes.
It could have been on other painting in different times when it went to mechanistic modernism.
And this was mostly servants' quarters up here, you said?
This actually was used for servants that accompanied guests who were staying here at the mansion. This is where they would come up to stay. Later on, during the Robert family living here, this was converted to individual apartments. We know that a number of teachers that were at the school system here did rent out in this area.
One thing we haven't seen as we went to several rooms, the bathrooms. Where was Henry's bathroom? Did it lead off his room?
Actually, right at the base of the stairs here is the addition in one of the closets in the room that became a bathroom. It was a modification along the way. As a matter of fact, early on, there was only one set of bathrooms on each floor in which everyone shared. It was just the plumbing that was added at the time. As it became converted into apartments, additional bathrooms were put in.
You got to remember back even in the the 30s, the 40s, it wasn't only we didn't each have a bathroom, you each didn't have a bedroom. When we grew up, there were 3 and 4 children in one bedroom. We didn't. There was 2 and 3 bedroom houses with 10 people, and that's the way things were. What is this? Is unusual. Is that a door at any?
Actually, no. That's just a little place where they gave a little light in. It's just above the porte-cochere roofing, as that went out as we were just on before here.
Now you along the wall here, you have some pictures. We saw those last night when we were watching your video, and this shows some very interesting things. First of all, you're starting like a little museum?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we just put up on the walls here a lot of the research and pictures and newspaper articles and whatnot that we've come by in our research of the Graves Mansion, the J&J Rogers Company, the Rogers family, and we've just put them up on the walls here just as a preliminary as to what we're going to be doing next year. This is just to get people up here to look at, to absorb, to educate themselves as to the intricacies of the socioeconomic conditions that existed at the time. And actually look at some of the pictures of the people who were involved in the Graves Mansion all the way up through time to present day. As a matter of fact, we even have some newspaper articles that were in the last year that were featured on the Graves Mansion, and newspaper articles that talk about the mansion all the way back into the 1870s. So it makes for very interesting reading and an educational opportunity for everyone. Next year we hope to expand upon this by converting each and every room up here into a specific theme. The research we find out on the J&J Rogers Company all in one room.
Great.
We will have videos, we will also have slide projection up here, and we will also convert the end of the room down there into bookshelves for the remaining books that we took from the library downstairs at Henry Graves, and quite a number of other things that we'd like to do up here. Anytime that we do have visitors through, we always welcome any suggestions they may have or any type of help they can offer in their expertise to make this, the third floor, even though it's white and painted over, the educational aspect of the mansion, kind of a resource center. Eventually we'd like to turn this third floor up into a museum.
Great. I wanted to show you, here's the great picture of the landmark in the Adirondacks. There's the formal dining room we saw, and this is the house. And this, if you remember, I mentioned, do you ever get any water running off the mountain? Well, you'll notice the trees were all gone in this picture, and they completely wiped out. There's the little outhouse, ice house. There's the portico that we were on above it, and this is the front. And over here is a picture of, I mentioned you don't have the best view. Well, you'll notice in whenever this was taken, it was pretty bare all around. They'd cut all the wood, and it stuck out like a sore thumb up here. I shouldn't say sore thumb, a nice thumb, because this showed the greenhouse right here too.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the picture above it even shows more clearly the greenhouse that came off the servants' quarters and also the greenhouse that came off the kitchen that we were looking at, the pink kitchen. You might also notice in this picture, looking back at the mansion here, where the garages are now presently, that there was a very intricate and beautiful picket fence that ran the entire exterior of the mansion. Also in one other picture, somewhere in here.
Here's a great architectural sketch, nice picture here.
That was the original architecture.
Battery went again. All right, we changed batteries, and this is Mr. Henry Graves. And Harry, and that must be his son?
I believe so.
Must be Harry, must have been his son. There's Jim Graves. And
that gentleman actually, I believe, is Joe Mosby. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was the coachman for the Graves.
okay, now this picture here, Calvin and I should look at, because Henry G. Rogers, now this was AuSable's first citizen. Would that be his? Henry was not his, it must have been one of the sons.
His sons.
His sons, all right. Citizen of the Year. No, that's nothing on us, Calvin. Calvin and Bob were both citizens of the year in the Northern Tier. And anyway, this is Henry Rogers, local citizen, dies at 97. The Rogers, are there any more Rogers in the community?
Actually, I think there's a gentleman of the Rogers family who's associated with one of the radio stations up in the, I believe it's Lake Placid area. That's something that we have some of the students out at SUNY Plattsburgh are going to be working through the next couple of months, interviewing family members so we can get a more accurate picture as to a lot of the things that weren't publicized or into print about the mansion. Personal experience.
Okay, this is a picture of AuSable Forks that we'll have him explain. Just to show you, Main Street comes down like this and swings this way to J. This bridge goes over to, as I once told you on TV, they told me everybody had gone to Jersey, and I thought they'd moved to New Jersey, and this is the Jersey, they called it. And this is where your flooding takes place?
That is correct. The ice jams, the flooding, it's been quite a problem from what I've heard for quite a number of years. The mansion actually sits back over here where we are now, and this here is Church Street, in which you have the library and also the Catholic Church. Right in here, to show you the date of the photo, is the new Catholic school that had been built. That's not shown here.
That would be on Main Street, facing Main Street.
Right, and this is the town hall. And of course, I believe your Stewart's restaurant, or your Stewart's convenience store, is located over here.
And the other church, the Episcopal, is over.
As a matter of fact, you've got your finger on it
right there.
That's where Henry and the minister had a problem.
That's where he used for his design. All right. Nice touch, I think. Very nice touch.
A nice pictorial essay of the area. Now, if you want to move down a little bit further, we can show you what we found about the J&J Rogers Company and also some other pictures of the mansion.
Oh, great. This is the one, that was the Lake Placid.
That was in
Beautiful.
the Lake Placid News. It was an expose, of course, on the house. And the senior section of the Wednesday edition, October 20th, just a little while back,
I have that.
Gives quite an explanation of the owner.
Oh, that's Roger Feiss, right? Oh, I don't remember seeing that. I'll have to watch for that one.
And we also have quite a number of other pictures which describe the J&J Rogers Company. Some pictures of the acid vats, of also the flue, the iron company. Here's something which dates back. This is all about the mill. In retrospect, this is a recent, or actually very old picture of AuSable Forks, in which you can see the mill in the background. This is the J&J Rogers insignia or letterhead that was used. This is an article that appeared in the Adirondack Life, July and August of 1977, a Victorian gem.
I want to remind you that you, when you get to a library or you look up this, or you could ask me to borrow my copy of the Adirondack Life, great book magazine for this area, and they had a 4-page spread in color. This is the main room here, and a nice article that expounds on what we've been talking about. And I see the Lake Placid News got into it also.
Oh, yes. And then further down, we even have articles dating back to when this article here was when it was a bed and breakfast, which shows Mr. Sorg, and things that were going on in the community. Also, this here was out of 1980, which was talking about the hydroelectric power plant. Then, of course, these are older articles talking about the Rogers Company. And we actually have a topo map here that gives you a really nice perspective of the AuSable Forks area. As you can see, the two rivers come together and meet here. From the thruway, looking east, now traveling west, is 9N, which comes into AuSable Forks. You have the flashing red lights, Stewart's on the corner. Come down Main Street. to the corner here where the Catholic Church is. Come down here. This is where the mansion sits. The property extends back to about here, but this is all Adirondack.
All
wilderness
wood,
from there
right.
on.
Adirondack gem, I think they referred to it. Great shot, great shot. You also mentioned last night and this morning that other TV people have been in to see you, I
Yes.
understand, right? There's going to be a special on Channel 57.
I believe PBS is going to put together something for us. It's either going to air next month or later on in the spring. We've also been featured on Channel 3, Press Republican. We've been on several of the newspapers, so we've gotten the publicity, which has been really quite generous. And we hope when we do open up in May that we'll get cooperation from everybody to generate some interest in the property here.
One thing we can guarantee you that no one will have a longer program about the Graves Mansion than will Hometown Cable. It may have a lot of other things besides facts, but it'll have the smiling Tom Campbell. All right, the Graves Mansion research again, more?
Yes, and this is really pretty much having to do with the AuSable Forks area.
Great.
As you can see in the center picture here, this was, I believe you can see Feek's Pharmacy, you can see the Catholic Church, and the downtown area, quite a bustling town for its time. And then, of course, we chronologically go up into 1925 when they had the
Great
devastating
fires,
fire.
yes.
And, of course, more pictures of that. And then different articles that were written over time about AuSable Forks. And this is probably one of the most interesting pictures that I've found here. This is actually what they say a log slide. This log slide emptied right over here near the mill in the AuSable River, but went up. This water trough is 7.5 miles long. To transport logs 7.5 miles up into the wilderness down to the mill. I think quite an engineering feat just
Very
in that
much,
respect.
very much. Because you don't use the pump like you can with water now, you know, and just getting water to this home is quite a project.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that was one of Henry Graves' most ingenious feats. And up on the third floor here, Henry had installed a water tank. And the water tank, actually up on the third floor here, had an intake pipe that ran from the top of the tank right out to the edge of the building on the outside, ran down to the base of the mansion, across the mansion grounds, over to the AuSable River, and the intake pipe actually ran up the river to a point at which the intake was higher than the actual water tank down here at the mansion. So, of course, you get higher to lower running of water. Always fill the water tank here. From the water tank, on the bottom was a valved pipe, drainage pipe that went down into the basement. When the valve was turned, the water pressure from the tank would shoot the water down into the basement. In the basement, it would turn a water wheel. This water wheel would spin, generating a vacuum that would pull from an outside underground gasoline tank the gas that was needed to be piped and pumped to all of the lighting fixtures throughout the mansion. And, of course, he had running water. So, I mean, who else did he really have to go to at that point? So.
You see these old pictures, you know, 'cause, we've always been well known in AuSable Forks for its baseball, and certainly Gary Finney, if you're watching this, and well known in AuSable Forks with your AuSable teams and so forth, right here on Main Street. And of course, the fires and the floods are two of the big stories of AuSable Forks, and two others, J.J. Rogers Company and Graves Mansion. And I think that covers 80% of AuSable Forks history over the years. And then the other 10% are the nice people who live in AuSable Forks.
Yes, know every one of them.
We're on the third floor still. We're with the white paint, and we're over the original room that we started in on the third floor. Correct?
That's correct. We're right above the grand parlor.
Okay, we're on the right-hand side as you look at it from the front. Those windows are facing out front. Its architecture in here is different. And this was part of one of the apartments too?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was. And as you can see, the smaller doors here had been converted into small closets at one time. When we came into the property, we noticed that a lot of the cold during the winter was escaping through those areas, since there was no buffer to the outside, and was keeping the area up here quite cold. So we filled those with insulation. We believe that those areas on the inside of these walls that go all the way down into the basement were areas in which the construction workers could get up on the inside of the walls to do a lot of the intricate brickworking. And as you can see, this entire area here is also oak. That has been painted over. It does have a beautiful view. We keep the shutters closed during the winter because, of course, that's that third part of the insulation system. And this is where most of the heat does rise. You might want to take a look over into the corner here to the archway, in which these were areas that had small vanities, small oak vanities that fit into the area here, where you had drawers on each side, probably a little cupboard opening in the center, a marble countertop, and just a ceramic bowl basin. And of course on the top you would have a plate with a little pitcher of water. So this was just kind of a wash-up area, probably graced with some type of a mirror in the background. But then later on, this was modified as an access point from this room into the next room over when the conversion into apartments was made, so that people wouldn't have to walk out into the hallway and down into another room. They could go directly on through.
You'll notice I mentioned a couple of times about the walls. Why? One of the reasons you have that wooden corner in there, you can see where this has been. That's what happens to corners with plaster if you're not careful. You know. Now, one other thing you'll notice when we were talking down below to Tom, he mentioned walls were from a foot to 3 feet thick.
That's
right?
correct.
Well, obviously this is not 1 foot. This is one of the wider areas of the house. Thickness,
Oh yes,
of the
definitely.
thickness of the wall.
As a matter of fact, this window here is the window you see on the third floor between the two chimneys that goes up, as we noticed from
Okay,
the
yes.
area.
It comes the fireplace from down below and the fireplace from your room.
Second floor.
On either side goes through here. And you're looking out that window toward the school. That's where we were looking. This is the closet. Again, look at the work on the inside of the door. This obviously was that probably was not the original closet door. You wouldn't think you'd want, unless they made them all the same, no matter where. Now, Calvin's looking up in the top of this high closet at some hooks on the side of the wall because I just won a prize.
Yeah, you sure did, because I'd been asking for quite a while exactly why they would put hooks so far up into the ceiling of a closet.
And my answer was probably for off-season clothes, because you had to make do, particularly in these big rooms with no closets. You had to have a place for your off-season clothes, and we do have off-season clothes in northern New York.
That was a mystery to me, because I'm from San Diego, and we pretty much have one season.
You're one season, yes. And no Christmas. Christmas with green is awfully hard. My first Christmas, 1947 in Texas, in California was tough. In San Diego, as a matter of fact, which is where you're from.
Well, we can look up at the mountains and see some snow, but it's a rarity to ever have a white Christmas in San Diego.
Or look at a picture, huh?
Yeah.
It's a place, what I remember in San Diego or north, where you could ski down a mountain and go down onto the beach.
Onto the beach?
Well, I think you could swim, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm told.
Oh, okay.
You can go from snow to nothing, you know, you could
as a matter of
ski and
fact, you
swim.
could start off your day skiing up at Big Bear and drive across the LA Basin and be in the beach area at Santa Monica probably by the end of the day.
Well, you could do it here. You leave here, go to Saranac Lake, and use an indoor pool. You could do the same thing. A good-sized room,
okay.
very, very large room.
10-foot ceilings.
All right. It's one of the things don't have any idea why you have that little step on the bottom.
I think that's just part of the decoration.
Decoration, all right. You'll notice the molding in this room does not stack up to the ones we've seen below. You'll notice the little molding on the top, the little piece of wooden molding on the top. That's what we see in most homes today. But this has been just gorgeous. Still has the 3 hinges, the 3 big hinges, 3 sets. I mean, rather a set of 3, so that your doors don't warp in the middle. Whatever, because they're big doors and they're heavy doors.
Actually, you can get a pretty good idea of what the hinges look like.
Right here?
Here, as we open up.
Yes.
And as you can see, they're real. They're actually copper hinges.
Now, you mentioned before, I think it was last night or today, maybe that you aren't going to find many of these were made just for this house, and it isn't a going design.
Exactly. I believe that when we look through it, that we cannot find that particular design anywhere in the research. So it may have been that they broke the mold after they they decided to contract with Mr. Graves.
Now, were these carpets? Oh, that was for the apartments, of course.
Yes, but as a matter of fact, let me take you over to one room over here, which you can actually see what is underneath most of the carpeted rooms on the 3rd floor.
Okay. We've moved into another one of the rooms on the 3rd floor, and this is a little bit different.
Yeah, this really has what we think is underneath most of the other carpeting throughout the other rooms on the 3rd floor. Kind of a nice design in wood. We will eventually be sanding this down and restaining. It's a beautiful display of wood, and as you can see, it's different types of grains through here. Also, we have a little seat over here, which we think could have been a little storage, maybe for toys for children or for clothing during the winter.
And we open it up to
our friend left over from Halloween.
yes, sitting in there. Look at the floor under there. Different pattern in the floor.
Different pattern as out here.
Can you see that, Kevin? The pattern. Now, I'm noticing that in the center here, there's nails in the top of the oak flooring. Now you'd wonder. Well, I guess there are in most of them. Usually, your flooring is nails on the sides. You don't see holes.
This is quite different. From
very different. Very, very nice. Large rooms.
Large rooms, basically the same floor plan as the floors below. As you can see, there's been some modifications made in that this here is a bathroom that has
bathroom and a portable shower. Not a portable, but a shower stall
with copper and not lead plumbing, and of course, once again, you see.
Okay, you got the pipes up. I mean, your place for your extra. Well, it's wasted space. Otherwise, you know what I would do in these rooms? I would put all my books along the top 1 foot.
Oh, that's a really good
They could
idea.
shelf.
Oh yeah, there's so many possibilities.
Because it's just wasted space. Otherwise, you know, this is probably if you. I don't like the paint much. I do the natural wood, but this is one of the most pleasant rooms that I have been in because of that southeastern exposure.
Very nice.
Here,
sun
and you've got a nice view from here, and just a beautiful room. It's a beautiful room. What a great office this would be for me. This cannot be transported to Champlain, New York. I take it.
No.
Won't let that happen.
All right. If you gentlemen are daring enough, I'll take you up into the attic and take a look at these secret rooms.
Okay. Well, before we do that, I'd like to have this also on camera. Because this is one of the curtain rods, you said?
This was a curtain rod holder, one of the originals. Very intricate.
Very much different than what we saw down below. But see, that there was a rod that went in, I guess it had a hole on the end that would fit into the peg on this side. Right. And they were probably 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter, the rod that goes across. It's not your normal attic. It's used for storage up here with your various wood extras you've got, your extra shutters and things like that, Tom?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can see some of the brick working here. They are repairing some of the chimneys and installing, of course, the stainless steel flue that goes up above the roofing.
Yeah, they're probably going to finish that right up to the roof with the chimney right up and out.
Yeah, we have a pretty good mason who's working on the job now. The attic is approximately, I think we've got it almost at around 2,000 square feet up here. And they designed over here, as you can see, the arched window just at the base of the roofing as for the lighting for up here. Of course, we have installed the fluorescent lighting. Up above that, there is a small room. It's actually an extension of the window there that you can see. It's all in brick. It's called a cupola. And back here is another room, which is really just a small room that's actually access to the roofing. And you can see the ladder there. They walk into the room, and right up at the top, they go right up onto the roof here for any type of work that they need to get done.
Okay, now these are, I don't know if you can see up in here, but you see you got the big 2x10s. They look cedar to me. That's in there. It's an all wood roof. There's no plywood on this roof. Those are all boards, and they aren't boards that are apart. Many times you'll see boards 1 inch apart or something. They're completely enclosed, and then you got your roofing on top of that. And in order to brace this real wide, they've got these 3x4s here, or 2.5x4s along each side to brace the main part of the ceiling. There's another chimney over there with a long pipe running to it, and he doesn't know of any heating system that's over there. certainly can't run a fireplace through that. It would burn up. This, of course, is for you people that hadn't seen. Maybe there's an old bed spring that before the inner springs, they had an outer spring that just sat underneath your mattress on a bed. We've been in AuSable Forks for 4 hours. We've been at the Graves Mansion. And the Graves Mansion was a great thrill for me, but what made it all was Tom. Tom, you're not at a loss for words ever.
Oh,
you're a great person to interview and talk with.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I interrupted. I know you have a regular spiel as you go around, but we certainly kept you away from that today, asking you questions here and there.
There's a lot of things that we're still, discovering about the mansion, and we encourage everybody to, participate. The more we find out, the more there is to find out. And one of the more interesting parts of the mansion, I believe, especially to the younger people, is the idea that there may be a presence here. There may be some ghosts or something like that left over.
Well, there was a president, and he spoke from the you said a president?
Right, the Grover Cleveland.
Okay.
We have the factual evidence as that. We've also had quite a number of things happen, not only to myself, but also to my tour guides and a couple of people who have come in on tour, which we want to find a logical explanation for these things. And it leads us to believe that maybe there is a presence here in the mansion. We haven't really seen anything, an apparition coming up or anything like that. But we have heard quite a number of different noises. We've had doors that have opened and closed mysteriously in front of us, lights that come on and off for no reason whatsoever. And we're looking for some factual evidence to it all, but we can't quite find it. But one night was quite interesting in that I had opened up for the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday for tours, and I'd closed down about 6 in the evening. But I got upstairs, was getting ready for bed and watching TV, and I heard the doorbell ring out in the front, and I looked out from my window on the second floor down to the curved driveway, and there was a bus out there. And here came, up to the front door, a group that had heard about the mansion, and they were about 55, 57 Canadian psychics, in which they were all part of a group organization, and they had a church, etc., and they were dying to see the mansion. So, of course, I thought, well, come on in, I'll take you on a little tour. Took them on tour, and as they went through, they would go to a particular area, and they would stand over here, and they would feel the area, if it was good or bad, or if there was a presence or something like this. And as they came through, this area here was the area in which they completely avoided. They would walk around it, or they would just be repelled or something like this. And it was almost to all of them that came through. And I didn't know what to believe. I never really had an experience with psychics or people with seances and things like this. So maybe they felt something that I don't feel, or a lot of people that come through on tour, maybe they're more prone to this type of thing. So it gave a little validity to some of the things that have happened here, but it's kind of all...
Yeah, but even though you don't know whether you should believe it or not, you must think about it when you lie and try to go to sleep at night.
Well...
and you hear that normal creaking you hear in a house, or
yes,
a beating on the window.
Yeah, there's when it gets a little stormy here, it's quite a thing to listen to the entirety of the house. But I figured to myself, I've never really been harmed here. I've never really had anything, although there was one night where I was here for only about a month, and I was still spooked, getting used to the house. And it was about 10:30 at night, I came out of my room upstairs, and I came down, of course, the hallway here, got onto the stairwell, and I was just wearing a bathrobe. This was, I believe, the end of September, beginning of October. And I came down the stairs, and as I got to the base of the stairs, it seemed to get very cold. It was a cold that almost seemed, after a while, to be generating out of me, rather than it just being cold because this is the bottom floor of the mansion. And as I walked down the hallway here further and further, it got colder and colder and colder, and I had the sense as I was walking down slower and slower that there was something that stepped in behind me. And it frightened me because I thought, well, a house this big, maybe it's a vandal, maybe somebody broke it, maybe somebody left over from the tours that was wandering around. I don't know. We've had that happen, as a matter of fact. Somebody fell asleep in one of the beds upstairs. It was really quite funny. But as I came down, also, I felt a pressure on my right shoulder. The further and further I walked down here, as if something was coming up from behind me, just ready to grab onto my shoulder. And I came down to this point here as I was walking. I came down to this point, so frightened, but then I became mad. And I just turned around like this to look, and there was nothing there, and then I went, oh my God. And it just went across
What
the
went
floor.
across?
This kind of a black amoeba or something that just gyrated like a puddle of something, went across the library floor, up across the bookcases, onto the wall, onto the ceiling, and just absorbed itself through to this day. I guess Pimple's talking about it. Straight up through there, and it all happened from that point there. And that was about a month later that the psychics had come through, and this was one spot in the mansion where, when you really think about it, it's almost direct center to everything that they just could not even get close to. And were repelled by it.
What's the guy's name that directed the Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh, let's see. That I think, was that a Spielberg movie?
Spielberg? Are you sure Spielberg wasn't here on some of those?
Well, I'd sure like to know. I'd like to talk to this guy about a few things, believe you me. So we have had those little things happen, and
Okay, Tom, our tour is over. Our day is over. We've been here for 4 hours. Thank you very, very much.
Opportunity.
Okay, and have a good winter in San Diego.
Great.
And next summer in 1994, come to Graves Mansion. Bob Van, Hometown Cable, Calvin saying good night. Thanks for watching Hometown Cable.